beautiful people. Today is Talk About It Tuesday, and welcome to Gumbo for the Soul. This podcast was inspired by my cookbooks. My cookbooks were inspired by growing up and being raised by, the older generation and starting cooking at an early age. My cookbooks are available on Amazon, Barnes& and Noble, and Books A Million. I have an adult version and I have a children's version. They include affirmations, and affirmations are very important to me. Some people like to use verses. I use a mixture of affirmations, I use songs, and I use verses. I have to continue to encourage myself on this journey that I'm on. I am a newly single parent of two young boys. So this is a totally different journey for me. And today is Talk About It Tuesday. And I wanted to touch on being an educator. I am many things. I'm a child of God. I am a mother. I'm a daughter. I'm an aunt or auntie. I'm a cousin. I am a chef. I am a counselor, of sorts. I'm an educator. A podcast I did a while back. It discussed how you kind of marry the two, being a chef and being an educator. So I've been in the education industry for over 15 years. I started actually, teaching Sunday school. With my dad being a minister. Um, of course, it was natural that I became a Sunday school teacher. My my maternal grandparents, raised me. My real mom passed away when I was 3, and my brother was 5. So I was raised by the older generation. My dad was a minister at Cullen Church of Christ for well over 50 years. Him and my mom were married for well over 50 years. He just recently passed in the month of March. So that kind of changed the dynamics for our, whole entire family. But I'll discuss that in another podcast. Dealing with grief and how that changes the family dynamic. But today is Talk About It Tuesday, and I wanted to talk to, or speak to, being an educator in the journey. Um, I am a firm believer that we are lifelong learners. And I don't consider myself a teacher. I consider myself an educator. An educator, is someone who, helps other people, learn. And I'm constantly learning myself. As far as being an educator, I have taught anything Head Start, pre-K, all the way to 5th grade. I've also been in the daycare industry. I had my own daycare. I've worked at a daycare. I've been a supervisor at a daycare. I've also been the owner of my own homeschool pod. I've recently, like I said, I got a lot of, well, I heard a lot of opinions during my education journey, as far as because didn't have children, until 4 years ago, um, due to the fact that I have something called PCOS. Doctors told me I would never have any children on my own. So, I was always either an educator or I was, the fun auntie, or, I was the daycare person, that, made sure your child was okay. And by me being in the education field and, the daycare field, I basically got to see your child, for a certain amount of hours a day, and then your child, came back home to you, the parent or the caregiver. So basically, I got to see like the after effect, all the things that I talk about, as far as, a child is a whole child, they're made up of different parts, social, emotional, physical, spiritual, all those needs happen to be met. I only was in your child's life for a certain number of hours. So I only had a few hours to, impact that child or, meet that child's need, in that certain limited amount of hours. Now, being on the education side of things, there's so many, stipulations and so many standards that we had to meet, to where it was a lot of times difficult, as an educator to meet those, emotional, those social needs because, I will say this on the public side of things. When I was teaching the public school, um, I feel like the public school system, it is what it is. I was fortunate to work for two principals that I felt like were very passionate, uh, in their position. I felt like they did everything they could, to advocate for the teachers and for the students, and the parents as well. And we really talked a lot about the parent teacher relationship. Um, to the parents that currently have children in the public school system, it is very important that you work with your child's teacher, um, and not make it be a battleground or a battlefield. It's very important that your child knows that you and the teacher are a team, and you both are working toward your child's success. And on the education side of things, I know how difficult that can be. Having to, you have to deal with meet all the standards, meet all the needs of your students, but then you also have a personal life as well. But in the midst of all that, doing affirmations actually helped me as an educator as well. And now, you know, I was just on the educator side of things. I was very compassionate, and I tried to meet, as many of my students' needs as possible, along with, meeting the standards. And that's one of the reasons why I decided to start my own homeschool podcast. And that is also one of the reasons why I decided to homeschool my own children, after working on both sides, the public side of education and the private side of education. I just felt like it was best for me to, make sure that I homeschool my children. And that's a personal preference for everyone. And, we'll discuss that as a later date. But back to speaking to educators and parents and caregivers. I'm a firm believer that, just like my books and this podcast is titled Gumbo for the Soul, we're all made up of different characteristics, and that starts with your child. That starts when you're a child. I speak a lot about self esteem and self confidence. The thing that a lot of people focus on when you're talking about education or school, um, they focus a lot on, tests and, does this child meet this standard or that standard? And like I said, it's kind of hard to meet the emotional needs and the social needs of students. Of course, that's why they have counselors, but, um, after, talking to a lot of counselors in the school systems, they really don't see students as much as they saw them when I was going to school. Like, we went and saw our guidance counselor. If I recall, it was at least once a week. Um, One of them I do remember. I do remember actually two guidance counselors. One was named Miss Toms, and the other one was named Miss Melanson. And we, actually talked a lot about, emotions, the emotional needs and the social needs. And I actually feel like they did a very good job. And I was really surprised when I started teaching in the school system that the guidance counselors, they really didn't have, they weren't able to have a big impact on our students, like my guidance counselors had on me. Um, I was really surprised, and I don't know why. I know it has a lot to do with, the standards and everything, but I really wish that the students today, you know, would be able to be impacted the way we were. But it's very important to understand about students and children that there's such thing as multiple intelligence, and it's a theory by Howard Gardner. So you can Google that. Howard Gardner. He has a theory on multiple intelligences. You cannot just put a child in a box and you cannot just say, well, because my child or your student did not meet this certain standard or make this certain score on a test that they're not intelligent or something is wrong with them or something's wrong with you. As an educator, I saw a quote and it said that if your student or your child is not learning the way you teach them, then that means you need to change the way you're teaching them so that they can learn. But back to multiple intelligences, there are at least 8 multiple intelligences. Spatial, and like I said, you can Google this: spatial, bodily, kinesthetic, musical, linguistic, logical, mathematical, interpersonal, intrapersonal, and naturalistic. Now, I will touch on the kinesthetic first. Kinesthetic, bodily kinesthetic, bodily, when you think of bodily, that's things that you can do with your body. So if a person is, and also I don't believe in, I feel like people have areas that they're very strong in, and then they also have areas where they need more support. So I was very strong in the bodily kinesthetic area when I was going to school. Anything that dealt with physical movement. Um, Most of the time, you'll see students, if they're very skilled at sports, they have good hand-eye coordination and they remember things by doing instead of just hearing or seeing. So I learn best if I can actually do it. So cooking actually goes hand to hand with that. So since I'm strong in the kinesthetic or bodily area, cooking actually helped me because, and you can also use that when you're dealing with your students or with your children. It's very important not to just focus on, you know, all the pressures that we have. You should take moments to just observe your children or observe your students. Like play a game with them. Watch a movie or a show with them. Do something that they enjoy, and just observe. You know certain things about them. If observe their strengths and observe the things that they may need, extra support in. So, if you have a student or a child that they're always active, they're always moving around, you shouldn't say, "Oh man, I wish you should sit down somewhere." What's wrong with him? I know a lot of children that have been diagnosed with ADD or ADHD. Um, not saying anything against the diagnosis because I'm not a doctor, but a lot of times you can take that energy and you can use it to help them. So if you know your child, like I know my child, he's 4 years old. He likes to move. He likes physical movement. He likes to jump, run, play. He likes to dance. That's perfectly normal for a small child because they're still learning their body. They're still learning hand-eye coordination. You can use that to their advantage, not to your advantage, to their advantage. During the times when they're up and moving, instead of us getting frustrated, we can give them different activities. They can help you pull the clothes out the dryer. They can help you put clothes in the dryer. Um, Now I'm working on with my 4-year old, because a lot of times he'll help me fold clothes, and then he'll make a game out of messing the clothes that we just folded back up. So I have to, take a deep breath, um, and actually model for him, how to deal with frustration, because that's very frustrating, I know, but you can still use that to your advantage. So since I know he likes to mess up the clothes, I fold up the clothes and then I have him help me put them up. So it may not be as nice and neat as I think it should be, but it's a sense of accomplishment for him, and I'm using his energy to his advantage as well, because he feels like he accomplished something, and he feels like he's being a great helper. But all in all, it should not be a problem for a child to like to move or have movement. We had PE in school. I've also seen, there's some schools actually, they have the modified seating. If you ever came in my classroom, we did a lot of movement because I understood that, a child, being a child, they like to get up and they like to move around and they like to play games. They like to play games, which is perfectly normal. It's not normal to expect a child to just sit still for a long period of time. Back to the multiple intelligences, but because they're strong in that area and strong in doing things with their hands, they may need extra support when it comes to visual things. They may need extra support when it comes to activities or situations where they have to listen. If a child likes to they like to be outside. They like camping, gardening, hiking. That's naturalistic. The whole point is you should use these different intelligences to your child or your student's advantage. Don't try to make them feel like something's wrong with them. A quick story. When I was going to school, I made A's in every subject except for math. So I felt like there was something wrong with me because I didn't understand math. And it wasn't until I got to college that I understood that there's actually such thing as multiple intelligences, and there was nothing wrong with me. It's okay for me to be strong in a lot of areas and then need extra support in this area. So I want us to take that away, from this talk about it Tuesday. Is just because your child is not or needs extra support in a certain area doesn't mean that there's something wrong with them. You can be number smart, you can be word smart, you can be picture smart, you can be sound smart, body smart, nature smart, so there's different forms of intelligence. And we need to make sure that we're giving our students and our children support in the areas that they need it, and applauding them and congratulating them, for being strong in those areas and not making them feel bad, for enjoying certain things. Once you learn something that they enjoy, like I said, use it to their advantage. I'm not strong in the logical. Well, I'm strong in the logical area, but not the mathematical area. But I have become stronger, once I, broke that barrier down in college, because I always had a negative thought when it came to math, because I felt like it was something that I couldn't conquer. And nobody in my childhood, they didn't understand it either. They felt like, well, if you're smart and all this other stuff, like why you can't do this? And it wasn't that I couldn't do it. It was just that I understood it differently. Even now, I don't remember phone numbers. I don't remember prices, and in conversating with different people, if you ask me a question about a phone number or anything dealing with numbers, I'm gonna look at you like I have to write it down. I have to write it down and I have to save it, because if I don't write it down, I'm not gonna remember even dialing a phone number. If someone gives me a phone number over the phone, I'm literally in my notes on my phone. I have to write it down. I'm not gonna remember anything that deals with numbers. But I will say that I am proud of myself because I do have a mentor, and I am proud to call myself a day trader. And that was one of the things that I ran from. I ran from being a day trader because I felt like it dealt with numbers and I'm not strong in that area. But I'm thankful to my mentor. I can give him a shout out. I'm thankful to my mentor because he actually helped me in that area, having more confidence when it comes to that. And the answer or the key to me being a productive or a strong day trader has been it's been chart time, it's been being coachable and it's been being teachable. So a lot of times, that's what our students, and our children need from us. They just need us to believe in them and help them to understand that about themselves, that they have different ways of being intelligent. So this is also helpful, for anybody who has a child that has been diagnosed with, ADHD or autism or, anything of that nature. There's nothing wrong with your child. They just learn differently. They just process differently. And a lot of us as adults, we have a lot of the same characteristics of some of our children and students that have been diagnosed. We just have never been diagnosed, whether or not either our parents didn't know our parents didn't believe in it, but we have a lot of the same characteristics, and we didn't get the help that we needed, and whether it was from ignorance or not, we didn't get the tools or the support that we needed in those areas. But the saying goes, when you know better, you do better. So now, that we have access to all this information and all this knowledge about, different ways that we can help our children, we can, give them a better foundation. So um, I just wanted to talk about that on this Talk About It Tuesday because, like I said, dealing with the being an educator or a caregiver and also being a parent, it's important for you to, you know, make sure your child, student, or the whoever you're giving care to, make sure that you give them support where it's needed, and don't pass judgment on them. We're here to be their guides. So and don't be harsh on yourself either if you don't understand or don't know these things. A lot of times, you can just give them love and support. So if you don't have a lot of knowledge in these different areas, like over the summer, that's one of the things that you can research. You can literally, you can look these things up on your phone. You don't have to have a laptop or a computer. You can just type in the search bar, you know, multiple intelligence or, different ways of being smart, so you can have, this knowledge about your own child, because it's not like it was back in the day where, oh, it's just the way it is, or he just move, or he's just busy, or he don't never sit still. There's a whole debate about, ADD and ADHD and all that. And I have listened to a lot of people's opinions when it comes to that. I know I have characteristics of ADD, ADHD, but that doesn't mean there's something wrong with me. That just means that I learn differently, I process things differently, and I have to figure out ways to, give myself the extra support I need in those areas, and not let it, negatively affect my day to day life, and not let it negatively affect, the lives of my children. So I want us to always remember, and that is why I'm a firm believer when I say at the end of every podcast, we all are smart, we all are important, we all are blessed, and we can do anything. With the right support, we can do anything. So that's one of the things that I um say to my children, and that's one of the things I believe about myself. And I have to believe it about myself, and I have to believe it about my children, and I want them to believe that as well. And every child that I have, been blessed to be in their lives, or even children just walking down the street, you can give them a smile, you can say, have a great day. There's different ways, to help, give support, because like it's true, like they are our future, the children are our future. So on this Talk About It Tuesday, that's what I wanted us to think about. There are different types of intelligences, and just because a person is not, good at the things that you are good at, that doesn't mean there's something wrong with them, and that doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. Um, and I always forget to acknowledge this, but you can listen to this podcast on Spotify. You can listen to this podcast on Apple Music. We are now on Amazon Music, and now we are also on YouTube. So there are several different platforms that you can access this podcast. So as always, thanks for listening, and until next time, you guys.